Yes.
And Howard Richardson is next. I had visited Howard a number of times in the BOP because his facility,
turn it on.
his facility was very close to my home. So, but he's been out now for a few weeks and is really hitting things hard from what I understand.
Tina?
Yes, hi Howard. Sorry, I was
Hi, I'm ready to go.
I'm good. I was winding up another phone call, so.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Yeah, so how are you doing?
I know it's a busy time. I'm doing very good, actually.
Good, good.
Hey Howard, it's Roy.
Mr. Bunger, how are you?
I'm well.
Yeah.
Linda gives you a big salute.
It's just been returned.
Howard is the J6er I know the best.
Yes,
So,
yeah. Roy visited Howard several times while
Several
he was.
times, yeah.
Roy was a very faithful visitor.
In fact, I miss visiting you, but I'm glad I don't have to anymore for your sake.
Roy, you know what? You nailed that one.
Yeah. So I did watch the interview with Mel Hawley, and so I know we had talked the other day, and I don't know exactly everything you feel comfortable sharing. I don't know whether you want to talk about stuff that happened while you were inside, or what led up to your arrest, or, you know, like I said on the phone, whatever you feel like God's laid on your heart to share, Howard. This is your 20 minutes.
Tina, I'm a prepared person, and I'm going to talk about why I went to January 6th.
Let's go right ahead.
You let me know when to begin.
Go right ahead.
Okay. On Wednesday, January 6th, I drove down to the Capitol. Okay?
Yep.
I had been invited to the Capitol on December 6th. On December 6th, I was invited by several people in several groups. And the words that were routinely used were come down for the big celebration, come down for the big party. And that meant to me, I knew what January 6th was. It was the day that the Electoral College formally announces where they're going to put their electoral votes.
Right.
So I thought, they got the thing squared away, they got it fixed, they're working on it, and it was going to be a big announcement that Trump had won. That's why I went down to January 6th. I had been down to Capitol building several times, but I went down there Labor Day weekend, 2009, when we were really, really upset with Obama. And the congressional people came out and addressed us and said, yes, we understand you're upset. Several people, Marsha Blackburn, Jim Jordan, Trey Dowdy, several people. And I thought it was going to be something like that, that we're going to address the crowd and say, we know something was wrong here, but we're fixing it. That's why I went down. When I got within sight of the Washington Monument about 11:15, I called a friend of mine down there. And this is 11:15, when I called him, he was just getting out of bed because he had been partying all night. He said, Howard, everybody's so excited. We're really pumped up about this. I said, okay, John, great. But we're going to go down to the Capitol, right? He said, yeah. Well, you're not ready, obviously. I said, I'll call you back when we get closer to the building. We were staying at the Marriott on Pennsylvania Avenue, okay? At about 15, 20 minutes later, 11:30-ish, I called him back. He was just getting out of the shower. I said, John, you got to move, John. Tell me where I got to park. I'm going to park. So I found a place to park under the Marriott garage, and I called him again. He was getting dressed. I said, John, you're too slow. I'll meet you down there. So I started walking down Pennsylvania Avenue, and I called other friends of mine that I knew were going to be there. As soon as I made the conversation with them, I wasn't even in the conversation 1 minute, and my phone was cut off. And I believe it was cut off intentionally, okay? As I continued to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, I asked people, do you have service? Some did, and some did not. So something was going on right from the beginning, okay? But I couldn't quite figure it out, and I had no way to talk to people, and really get an idea what was going on because I was cut off. I continued walking down Pennsylvania Avenue. When you get pretty close to what they call the reflecting pool, about a half a mile from it, another road comes into Pennsylvania Avenue called Constitution Lane or Constitution Boulevard. It comes in on an angle, not a 90-degree angle, on a very sharp angle.
Folks here for the J6 Street.
It comes up to Pennsylvania Avenue. There were two large buses. These were military buses, not transportation buses, not school buses, military buses. On these buses, they were jam-packed. There was at least 40 to 50 guys on each bus, and they were all young, like 20 years old, 22 years old. They were all young. They were not in uniform, but they were all dressed the same. And when I say that, I mean they were dressed darkly. I started to head toward the bus, but looking to get a little better closer look. And then, right down Pennsylvania Avenue, about 20 or 25 people on bicycles. These were off-road, heavy-duty bicycles. These are bicycles that normally cost $400, $500, $600. They were all manned by young people, all 20, 21 years old. And they were all dressed in Trump gear. And it was obvious. You could even see some of the tags on the hats and shirts. They had just gotten this stuff. They didn't look like Trump supporters to me. Okay? But they were going so fast, I didn't really get a good look at it. They were flying down Pennsylvania Avenue, about a good 20, 25 of them. I continued down Pennsylvania Avenue to the reflecting pool. When I got to the reflecting pool, there's a half-moon circle drive, a big drive. 5 vehicles to drive abreast. It's a big lot wide, that's in the shape of a half moon. On the inner part of this road was a bicycle rack barrier, commonly used as a detour or something to reroute people. There were no police officers, there was nobody there. There were no signs, nothing. Anybody could go over this bicycle rack barrier. It was only 4 feet tall. Okay? When I got there was only about 200-300 people there max. And I was told there would be thousands and thousands. And so I said to myself, I asked a few people, what's going on? Where's all the people? And some mostly said that I don't really know. Then this guy walked over and he said, Mr. Brittany, kid, sir, they're all still listening to Trump give his speech. They will be here. I said, oh, okay, great. At that time, somebody breached one of these barriers. And you can easily do that. The feet are meant to be locked together. They were not locked together. Somebody pushed it. When I say somebody, I mean a handful of guys pushed over. Again, all young people pushed this barrier over. They started walking on a stretch of grass. It's about a stretch of grass about 300 yards before you come to the steps in the back of the Capitol. 300 yards.
Howard, let me ask you a question. The group of people who pushed over the barriers, were they similar to the young guys that you saw on the bicycles? And
yes, they were all young people going in. Most of the Trump supporters I know, in fact, the vast, vast majority are 40, 50, 60 years old. These were all people like 21 years old.
Right.
Okay, so I said to myself, when they knocked over this back, I'm not going in it. Because about 150 yards in on this 300-yard stretch of grass, were about 10 to 15 Metro police. You know, regular police officers. Right. 10 to 15. Certainly not a show of force. And if you don't know what a show of force is, you can find out, okay? So I said to myself, I'm not going in there. I could be shot. But then I looked to my right, up the quadrangle, where you look, that's looking up down the quadrangle where the Washington Monument was. And down the quadrangle were thousands and thousands of people coming down. And here's what they were doing. The vast majority, there had to be at least 500 to 1,000 flags, American flags, and they were all singing patriotic songs. That's what they were doing when they were coming down the quadrangle. When I saw that, I got empowered. I got boosted up. I said, you know what, I'm feeling safe now. Now, about 100 people are going in that bridge over the bicycle rack barrier. So I went through it now. At about 150 yards in, remember those 10, 15 police officers, Metro cops? Yeah. They were all gone. Gone, every one of them. There was nobody there to stop anybody. Also, at that point, if you recall, or you can pull up a picture of January 6th back at the Capitol, there were 3 large scaffolds. These are 4 stories, maybe 5 stories tall. They're big, they're huge. 3 of them. On the middle one, there was about 5, maybe 6 young guys on the scaffold, and one of them had a megaphone. Have you ever listened to a megaphone from 150 yards? I have. It's very hard to understand. It's sketchy and scratchy.
Right.
This megaphone was crystal clear. He was so clear, it was like he was 10 yards from me.
So
this was
like
a $500
high-end megaphone.
Thank you very much. It was a $500 megaphone. Not the kind of megaphone this 21-year-old guy is going to buy. Just not going to happen. You can buy a megaphone for $100. That might be in his ballpark, but not this one. Right. Okay? And here's what he was saying. Come on, don't stop now. We can stop them. There's not that many. Come on, don't let. We can take them. He was saying words like that. We can take it. There's not that many. He was clearly trying to agitate the people. When I got up close to the last tier of steps, there's 3 tiers of steps back there. On the middle one, I met about 20, 25 young guys, and they were saying a little rant. Here's how the rant went. They said this. One guy would say, "What do we want?" And the other one would say, "We want the house." And they said it about 10 times. Then he finally said, "Whose house?" And they said, "Our house." And they all ran up the steps toward the Capitol, clearly trying to agitate the crowd. When I got to that scaffold in the middle, I was within 10 feet of the bicycle rack barrier. On the other side of the bicycle rack barrier, it was a total, maybe about 20 pieces. These pieces are about 12 feet across. They are very, very heavy, and when you lock the feet, you really can't knock them over. On the other side of the barrier, there were about 35 full riot-control police officers. There were 1 or 2 lieutenants and 1 captain. They were just standing there. I stood there for about 20 minutes. I didn't really engage them, but other people were engaging. They were talking to the people in the crowd. There was no provocation. There was no antagonism going on. At about during that 20 minutes, I saw 2 things happen. I saw a young guy, throw a water bottle at the police officers. A frozen water bottle is considered a weapon. This was not frozen. It just went over their heads. It did nothing. Didn't strike anybody. Another young guy was on the ground on one knee scratching something. When he stood up, he had a big firecracker in his hands. He took the firecracker and he threw it at the riot control police officer, but it was a dud. It just went boom. It did nothing. Okay? So the police were still not in a defensive or an offensive formation. They were definitely not in a show of force. They were just there in a very ambiguous kind of a gathering. Okay? At that time, about 20 minutes, up the steps, like I said, there's a lot of steps in the back, was a big, giant piece of metal coming up the steps. Being held by and forced by and picked up by about 25, again, young guys. They were going to ram that bicycle rack barrier. Now, this time, all the riot control police officers came up and grabbed the bicycle rack barrier and raised it up right at the time when it came up there at that little crest there. And there was a big smash. And then, a little recoil. And then they smashed it again. And the second time they smashed it, it started coming over my way. This was a big piece of metal. I was right there. This thing could hurt me severely if it hit me. So all I did was put my hands out to brace myself in case it really came my way. And as soon as I touched it, I was pepper sprayed because the police officers at that time, for whatever reason, considered me to be one of them. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all for that. Okay, it's a very traumatic moment. Now, as soon as I touched that thing, I was pepper sprayed. He hit me right between the eyes. I don't know if you or anybody I'm talking to has ever been pepper sprayed, but it hurts. It hurts, and all the fluid comes out of your face. Your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, maybe, I don't know. You can't really see anything. You can see things, but you can't really see what's going on.
Right.
And I at that point, I retreated underneath the scaffold just to compose myself, just to, get my wits together. And a guy came over to me and he said, "You want some water for your face?" And I said, yeah. And as soon as he put the water on my face caught on fire. Yeah. I didn't know that. But this chemical and this pepper spray is meant to be exacerbated by water. They know that, and they know people are going to do that. And my face felt it was on fire. Another guy came along within 10 seconds. He said, "No, put this on your face." I looked down. He shoved it in my chest. And I said to him, "Milk?" He said, "Yes, milk. Put the milk on your face." And as soon as I did, within 10 seconds, the intensity of this, I felt like my face was on fire. Yeah. The intensity went down about a good 90%. The milk absolutely helped me. Okay? At this point, I'm standing under the scaffold. All right? I was talking to some people that I really didn't know. I'd been talking to before, but I was standing there for about that 20 minutes. There was really nothing happening there. And they said to me this, "Howard, we're leaving. It's going to get out of hand pretty soon." Now, there's maybe 1,000 people there. And then the police are, like I said, they're right up against the barrier because they had to come up here to block they raised up the barrier to block this big piece of metal. And they said to me, "Howard, we're leaving." I said, "Yes, you leave too. It's going to get out of hand." And I said, "Mia, you're right. This is not what I came here for." And I said, "Wait a minute, I got to get my flagpole." My flagpole was laying down on the pavement. I went out to go, I came out underneath the scaffold, I grabbed my flagpole, and I was talking to a woman or a guy. I forget because she had short hair, but she might have been a guy or a gal, I don't know. And in that 10 seconds there, she got pepper sprayed in the side of her head. I could feel the pepper spray hitting my windbreaker. The camera I saw, they took pictures of me later from the FBI, shows a woman clearly leaving the area holding a coat over her head and face because she was afraid of being pepper sprayed. They were pepper spraying us just for standing there. And that's when I lost my temper. I took my flagpole, my little dinky 1/32 of an inch aluminum flagpole, and I swung it at a riot control police officer. He was standing there right up against the barrier. If he'd have stood back a couple of feet, I could have never reached it because I didn't go up to the barrier to hit him. I swung for where I was at because I just lost my temper for a whole 3 seconds. When I swung, I hit his metal baton, which he held in his hands in front of his face. My little dinky flagpole continued down. It hit the top of the bicycle rack back, broke in half. Done. I never struck him, so that means I didn't hurt him. I didn't steal anything. I didn't break anything. And for that, I got jailed.
You got 3.5 years. Yeah.
Almost 4 years, yeah. I was sentenced to 46 months. My son is a police officer. He said, Dad, if you'd have done that in Philly, that very same thing, you would have got 2 weekends, maybe. Most judges would have said to you, Dad, just get out of my courtroom, sir, and don't come back. I get better fish to fry. But the federal people, because I was a Trump supporter, threw the book at me.
Yeah.
It was a politically...
That's what happened that day.
Yeah.
We were clearly infiltrated by people who were not Trump supporters. Who exactly they were, I never found out. But they were clearly... Oh, by the way, I forgot one thing. This is important. This guy was on the megaphone. He was standing up on the landscape with a megaphone. 4 or 5 real Trump supporters came up to the scaffold and said, you, get down now. And he came right down. He was about 21 years old. When his feet hit the ground, he took his megaphone, he threw it at them, and took off into the crowd.
So he didn't want to be caught with the megaphone?
You're darn right he did. He didn't want to be there anymore because he knew bad stuff could happen to him.
Yeah.
Because he knew what he was doing. He was inciting the crowd.
Yeah.
I understand mob mentality. When I was in the Army, I studied propaganda. That was my job, to monitor the enemy and what they did. And propaganda, part of propaganda is called mob mentality.
Yeah.
If you don't understand, I'm going to give you a 10-second definition. What you do is you infiltrate the people, 10 of them, 10,000 of them, whatever they are. They're upset, they're pissed off, whatever they are, and you do things they wouldn't normally do. And so they look at you and they say, oh, they're with us. And look what they're doing. So it becomes okay to do certain things that they normally wouldn't do. That's called creating mob mentality. It's a tactic used.
Yep. It's almost like an infection.
You could say it that way.
Yep.
That's what happened on January 6th. I said, I'm out of here. The people that were talking to me, they headed for Union Station, which is the big train station down there. I said, I'm going to stay and walk around the Capitol and see what's really going on here. And I'll tell you some more if you want to hear it. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, but I have about 5 minutes. We have
I can do it in 5 minutes.
Calling in from DC about 2:45, so. Okay.
As I proceed to walk around the Capitol, I came across another 6 or 7 full riot control police officers guarding an emergency exit. Nothing was going on there. The people were actually talking to them. This was a good 100 yards, maybe 75 yards, 125 yards from where this altercation started on the back of the Capitol. I continued from there, and I went to a couple where there was a couple of doors into the Capitol building. There was about 100 people there. Nobody was going in that I could see. Then I went to the front of the Capitol. There was a good 200-300 people, and people were squeezing into the Capitol. People were going into the building, and you could clearly see guards there who were doing nothing. They were dressed in uniforms, and they did nothing to stop anybody. I continued to walk around the Capitol, and then I came to another emergency exit on the far corner of the Capitol. That's where this lady, Ashley Babbitt, was shot. She had just been shot like 5 minutes before I got there. And I asked her what happened. They said, a lady down there got shot. I said, are you serious? And they said, oh, no. They said you can't be down there and shot her. That's not what actually happened. And a guy came over and said, no, that's not what happened. She was basically, this is what the guy said to me. He said, she was a person who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if you look at that scene of what happened there, and you can find a Newsmax box, you can find all kinds of archives of what happened, because I've seen it, okay? There were 3, I would call them park rangers. They were guarding the entrance to this emergency opening there. There were 3 of them there. They were there for a good 2 minutes doing nothing. The crowd was not agitated. There was no provocation or anything like that whatsoever. And then these 3 guards looked at each other. They looked at each other. And they made a left turn, marched out of that little space. There was only about 10, 15 people there. And then 2 young people. This is something you can see. Anybody, this is not my opinion, my recollection. This is what happened. About 2 young people went up and started smashing the door and smashing the window. Ashley Babbitt was right there. She put her feet up on the windowsill. She put her head inside. And this cop gave no warning, no fire warning, nothing, and shot her in the neck. She was dead within 3 minutes. She was in the ambulance when I came there. She was still in the ambulance. There was nothing I could do or say at that point. There was about 10, 7, maybe riot control police. They were just standing there doing nothing. I continued walking around the Capitol. I went around the far west end, and all it was parking. There were hundreds of cars there. Then I came back to the back of the Capitol where I originally come. It's now about 3:15, and I'd seen enough, and I'd had enough. I headed back to where my friend was staying at the Marriott. That's what happened on January 6th at the Capitol, what I personally saw.
It's quite a story, Howard. Everybody who was there saw different things. Yeah, but each...
You're right, Roy. You're so right. Everybody saw different things, but that's what I saw.
Yeah, and each perspective is vitally important, and I think yours is really important for some of the infiltration events that you saw.
Well said, Roy. You know, I couldn't put it together that day. I said, something happened there.
Right.
Something's wrong here. But like I said, I had no fun. I had some very smart people down there that I knew, but I couldn't reach them because my phone was cut off.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So, yeah, something went on. But now, you know, then as time went on, and I started learning about stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then finally, after 3 years, all the pictures, all the camera film started getting released. I said, we were set up. It was a total scam. Total scam. We were set up. They tried. Look. Trump offered them 10 to 20,000 NGs and ARs, National Guard and Army Reserves. Muriel Bowser and Nancy Pelosi both said no, we don't need them or want them, because they had their own plans. I know they were involved in this. To what degree, what plans, I don't know. But I know they were involved.
Yep.
Do you know that Nancy Pelosi had her own film crew there that day?
Yeah,
yes,
I did know that.
Yeah. Her daughter.
Why would she do that? Because she was going to make sure she had it on camera. Because she knew what they were trying to initiate here and put into play.
Yeah, her daughter was involved with that film crew or getting that information or filming the situation. It's from what I understand.
I have talked to many people, folks. I've talked to many people, and they say there was definitely not more than 500 police officers there. Not more than 500. There's no way you can defend that building. If you know what a show of force is, I told you I'd tell you what it is. A show of force is a very, very basic concept that works. It works every time, actually. I've never seen it fail. Now, and the easiest one to understand is you're in a nice bar or a nice restaurant and somebody's out of control or drunk or whatever. And all the bouncers show up, 6, 7, 8 of them, and they surround the person. I've seen this. My son was a bouncer one time, a long time ago. And here's how it goes down. Sir, I know you're having a good time. Once you have a good time, right now you're out of control. You got to calm it down. Please, if you don't calm down, we are going to throw you out. And you're either going to lose or you're going to lose situation. You're just going to lose. And that's what people in that position say, you know what, I need to calm down because I'm going to get my butt kicked. If they'd have had a show of force there, if they'd had 1,000 soldiers over here, or 1,000 soldiers over here, or 1,000 soldiers over here, with M16s, nobody would have done anything.
No.
But they didn't. Yeah. They wanted to make it look like they were protecting the building, but they were not protecting it.
Yeah.
Hey, brother.
I'll tell you what, Howard. Roy, do you have a comment?
Well, no, I'm just saying we got to wrap it up here, unfortunately. It's really good talking.
Okay.
So glad you're out. And, please keep in touch and we'll see you.
Thank God for you, Roy.
Well,
thank God for you, buddy. You were a real good friend to me.
Well, yeah, amen. And I'm happy I was able to be. But thank God for this entire movement. And, the support movement.
Getting visitors in prison is a big deal. And most of those guys don't get visitors. You were there. You were there regularly, boy. And I appreciate you.
Amen. Amen.
Well, we're glad to be able to talk to you, Howard, and certainly we'll touch base. Oops.